Welcome to Diaries of a Data Scientist, our podcast in which we share about what's important to break into data science, provide valuable insights also for senior data scientists, and invite interesting guests from different data science areas. We're Yasmin and Kate, we're both data scientists and mentors working in industry, and we are sharing here our thoughts and experiences. Let's go!
Hi guys, this is Yasmin and Kate from Diaries of a Data Scientist, and today our 15th episode already. And the topic of this one is going to be a little bit interesting, I would put it like this. So just to start with, if you remember last time we have finished with our last episode talking about different opportunities, how you can develop yourself in the field of a data scientist. And we talked mainly about two different streams, right? The first one was to become a team lead. And the second part was to become a senior developer. Although, Yasmin, you also mentioned a pretty cool opportunity in the middle of those two streams, which can be a developer advocate. And this is the topic of today's episode. And if you have ever wondered, I don't know, seeing perhaps on LinkedIn what it means, that I guess today is definitely for you.
Exactly. Hi, everyone. And it was exactly like that for me. So I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and then I saw like some profiles of also big tech influencers with like hashtag DevRel, and I was like, DevRel.
What is that, right?
Could be developers. So like, what is rel, right? So I was starting to Google around a little bit, and turns out they were talking about being a developer advocate and being in so-called developer relations. And yeah, kind of interestingly, this was not a role that I came across here in Germany, or also like in German-based companies at all. So I wondered like what this is about. It sounded interesting, and if you wondered it too, we've got you covered with today's episode. And we're gonna go also, into what kind of skills are needed, what are the job opportunities also here in Europe, how's the salary. So all of these things are gonna be covered in today's episode.
So, and to start with, I would propose to maybe reflect a little bit on the topic why this happened, that only in 2024 we got to know about that position. Because I know that when we were going through different articles and preparing ourselves for today's episode yesterday, we stumbled upon different facts that this position has been actually on the market since 90s, right? And for me, I was just like a little bit wondered yesterday, how is that possible that we are working in tech and like data departments and we haven't heard about this, or we just slightly touched that kind of field? Have you thought about that?
Very interesting question. I think a part of it is it really depends on if you're working in a company which is also selling a software-based product to to the outside world, or if you are like us, being a data scientist in industry who is mainly providing data science services internally in the company. Because being a developer advocate, it's mainly being the bridge between like the internal developer community of that company and the outside developer community, in order to basically strengthen the relationship, gather insights, gather the feedback, basically be a outspoken person for your products, and also represent them to some effect. So if you're working as a developer or data scientist in an industry company, you wouldn't need that role, right? So you wouldn't also come across that role. And I think even though SAP is actually offering that position, which is based in Germany, and I've been with them for 5 to 6 years before coming to BSF, I was at that point still at the very early of my career. So I think I just did not come across these kind of positions, because usually this is more something you would take up after, this is not someone in their first career step or being very junior. So I think this is only something which opens up at a like mid part of your career. So I think that might explain why many people haven't seen that. And of course, also percentually wise, I mean, you don't need as many developer advocates as you need developers to build a product, right? So these roles
Definitely.
are usually also quite rare.
So pretty much, do I understand correctly that firstly, this kind of positions are only for the companies that are either producing the product, like software product, or any kind of software services offered to the other companies or to the other
Yes.
customers. And for that, you need to have that position in order to reach out different external developers communities in order to enhance your software product.
Yes,
I
exactly. I think
mhm,
that's a great summary. And yeah, also you can think about this as part of the kind of marketing process,
mhm,
right? So this also helps, of course, in the end to demonstrate what are the functionalities and the capabilities of that software product. And in
mhm.
the end also helps to validate maybe new features of the software product. So having this like fast access to the to developer community, of course, in the end, it's a means to an end, which is like being able to sell faster or more of your software product. Yeah, so
Yeah,
this is how I think about this.
definitely. And I was also like, give it a little bit of the thought. Um, Can we also say that a developer advocate is a person which is definitely has a very strong technical background in order to reach out to those developers communities which are outside of the company? And this person also has or like even must have a very nice communication skills in order to a promote or market the product, and b also to show the value of the product to those external communities of developers.
Yes, exactly. So it's really a great example of
Mm-hmm.
this intersection role where you need somewhat the best of both worlds in that sense that you need to have this highly technical skills, but you also need to be able to basically explain very complex um, patterns or very complex
Mm-hmm.
concepts in an
Mm-hmm.
easily understandable words to outside developers and to break down concepts into simpler terms,
Mm-hmm.
and to have this communication skills. Like you need to have that very technical understanding, but obviously, as you summarized, you also need to be able to have a good feeling about what kind of terminology is catching with the audience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand, like, do I need to maybe rephrase things? How do I get into contact? How do I engage people? And these are core communication skills. But
Yeah.
so don't be fooled. Even though I said right, this is part of the marketing, like concept.
Mm-hmm.
You need to
Strategy.
have these highly technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is definitely also like a I would say, like, if you're thinking about leaving the core data science space or core software developer space because you're
Mm-hmm.
maybe not fully like happy with the kind of task, this is something you could think about, especially if you're someone who's very outgoing, who loves to teach other people
Yes.
concepts, who loves to engage with people, right? Who loves to give also presentation. This is
Yeah.
definitely not something for you if you don't enjoy connecting with other people.
Or socially awkward. Just a fun fact and a joke.
Yes.
so uh, definitely, yes. So this is what I was about also to a little bit maybe throw away into our conversation that it is not only about marketing, it is not only about having strong technical background as a developer previously, but it's also about having this passion to perhaps write some articles on Reddit, to maybe make some presentations to showcase the product and showcase the company, and perhaps to create even learning paths like learning materials. As for example, yes, you are doing this with your data and AI academy, right? For
Yeah.
experts and also for
Though
non-experts. So
internally.
yeah,
Yeah.
internally, yes. So this is something that you just have to be passionate about. And I guess this kind of skill set, it's I have again goosebumps all over my body talking about this part. So I guess it is. I would say that it's very unique, or it's maybe I would rephrase it, not unique, but it's pretty rare to have this kind of person with within the technical part.
who's
to
like
fill.
passionate about both, but also capable to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, and I think the most successful developers advocates are those which make it feel very natural, right? Which do
Mm-hmm.
not come into the community and say like, oh, this is the the best product of the best product, and you have to have that. No,
Yes.
I think the best and most successful developer advocates will be those who just with their content provide value to the community, and
Mm-hmm.
indirectly through providing that valuable content, the developers are gaining the trust and are gaining more insights about the product, and are that thus more like um, open to also take a look and build a
Mm-hmm.
connection to the product, and influencing again their companies
Yeah.
to buy that product.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
Um,
most successful route in that sense. And that's why I think it's important that these people are at the core still developers or data scientists,
Definitely.
because you need to speak the language, you need to, understand the
Mm-hmm.
jokes, you need to be able to connect with the community. And that is not working if you're at heart a salesperson or like a marketing person with not a
Yeah.
technical passion.
I would put it like this, that developers should see you as a part of their pack, kind of. If we're talking
Exactly.
about these terms, yes.
Part of the wolves.
Part of the wolves, definitely. I love that one. When I was going through the different articles about that position yesterday, I and firstly got myself introduced with that demand on the market. I was wondered why the developers would be okay to do something like that for a company, even though that, as we know, they're not getting paid for that. Because pretty much what they're doing, they're testing out the product, but for free, spending their own free time on the product enhancement of a totally different company. Have you thought about this?
I
I
think
mean,
it's not too far away from how, like, why someone would actually contribute to open source. Maybe with the
hmm
slightly different twist that, of course, with open source, in a everyone from the community is contributing, and everyone from the community is then also value like benefiting from that contribution. So I think the case is stronger with open source
hmm
software. But I guess in the end, so if I'm like a key user already from software A, right? And
hmm
I'm just, getting really angry at certain functionality not being available, or, that one neck in the software is always like, really annoying me as part of my day-to-day job, and like making my life harder.
hmm
Um, Even though it's the product of a different company, to some extent I can fully understand why I would want to get in contact with them and say, just listen, just fix that neck, and you will be able to sell so much more of that, and I myself are going to be way stronger
hmm
advocate of that as the customer, because I can then really with a good conscience recommend that to my fellow developer colleagues, because then it's not feeling annoying anymore. So
Yeah.
I can understand where this energy is coming from. I think in the
hmm
end, the way that I think about that, it's the total of the community, right? It's not one person spending
hmm
hours and hours on helping to develop that, but it's like the swarm intelligence, in that sense, that everyone is helping a little bit and
hmm
making baby steps to improve.
hmm
And I like, for me, it doesn't hurt to spend 5-10 minutes to give feedback and say, hey, this is something that I didn't like. And
hmm
I mean,
Yep.
you do have to some extent the same aspect when you're like working internally, even in an industry company, right? You usually have your standard software already in use,
hmm
but nevertheless, you're always being contacted from competitors in that field and saying, hey, but don't you want to try our software? And to some extent you also engage in that, because ultimately you hope you have something better, something which is more productive for you, something which makes
hmm
you and your colleagues more productive in your tasks. And for
hmm
that, you have to invest a little bit of time.
So what I want is just to say also about the why they would love to have it is
You mean the
primarily
companies?
No, not the companies, but why developer communities would love to spend their own time on developing
Mhm.
something, or because pretty much what they're doing actually for me, it's the actual job. They check out the bugs, they test different versions, they check out whether this specific software is gonna work with this specific, for example, iOS version. If you remember, we had this situation previously with you with my iOS version and some softwares. And pretty much for me, it's that the reason how you got to stay in the community of developers. So this is the peer learning when you got to develop something with the other, perhaps more senior developers in that community. And probably it's also going to, make stronger your positions on the market, having in your resume that you are contributing to the open source as well. And perhaps you're gonna be a pretty nice candidate as well to XYZ company because you actually spend your time on enhancing their product externally. So are my understandings. Why
Yeah.
would I perhaps do that?
Yeah. Though I have to say, right, I don't
Hmm.
see the job of the developer advocate, so I don't think it goes as far as opening up any kind of code to the outside developer community, right?
Hmm.
So this is a company property. I think the role is starting when you have a feature already, like, almost ready,
Yeah.
and you maybe want to ship that out to like a selected group of people in that community to help you test it. But that is the, I think, major difference towards like open source. I mean,
Hmm.
they're not actually getting anything from the source code. So I
Hmm.
think the level of interaction is like with the almost ready feature and providing like feedback on the interactions on maybe, but they would never see any code of that product being built, and unless that's their,
Hmm.
like, the companies is
The
actually like,
policy. Yes.
exactly, that's the policy, and they have maybe a freemium
Hmm.
product where you anyway have a free version available in that sense, but
Hmm.
then also a premium version for something also.
Yeah. So, and maybe right now to summarize a little bit what we have just went through for the past almost 20 minutes, is that a developer advocate position primarily is about connecting and make connections between the company and the developer communities by advertising the product to those developers in order to enhance that product. And maybe in here, we also, I guess, already um, stated the kind of a job description or how would that person would look like for a potential role, is that that person has to be uh, must have very strong technical skills as well as communication skills, having a passion of creating presentation, learning materials, explaining very complex concept with a very plain English language, as well as doing like a lot of interactions, small talks, and being able to speak on this language and kind of to make the product sweet for developers so they will um, be glad to spend their time on that.
Yeah, they have like, I don't know if you've heard about the AIDA concept in marketing, right? Now,
Yes.
like, grabbing some stuff from old lectures: attention, interest, desire, and action. And I think this
Uh-huh.
is like covering, and you can somewhat support that life cycle with
Mhm.
developer advocates, in that sense that, first, like, you want to get in
Mhm.
contact, you want to engage with the community, you want to get their attention for your product, right? But then it's about
Yeah.
providing value, providing valuable content, making them see how your product maybe is also different than from competitors on the market, or why your product is something completely novel
Mhm.
that the market has not seen. So you want to gain the interest, and not just oh, right, okay, I know about this product, but actually being interested about learning more. And then it's all
Mhm.
about strengthening that interest to the actual desire to also then, as a developer or as a data scientist, go back to my management and say, look, I've seen this
Yes.
product and we need that, even though we maybe already have something similar right now, but I do feel it's worthwhile switching, which always is producing costs, right? This is something
Mhm.
that's it's
Of
not
course.
coming for free, right? You have to migrate stuff, you have to, maybe prematurely
Definitely.
cancel contracts, whatever. So
Mhm.
this desire already has to be quite strong for you to go to that length and actually make a
Mhm.
case. And then
Mhm.
it's all about getting into action. And I think then the job also of the developer advocate is not to to then also support into like the proper customer life cycle, but still
Mhm.
engaging with the community in that sense that it's not about the selling, right? It's about, and then that's why it's different. So if you're thinking about it as a salesperson, I think you're taking it wrong, but it's about staying
Mhm.
continuously in touch with the community and also
For sure.
using that as a validation, but also giving something back to that community. It's always a give and take.
Definitely.
All right, Kate. So now we heard a little bit already about the responsibilities of such a role, and
Mhm.
why actually also the developer community would be open towards like getting engaged, right? But
Mhm.
what do you think? Why is this so beneficial to companies that they would offer such positions? And is that something that is a proper full-time role, or is that something that people are doing on top of their usual job?
Mhm. So let me start a little bit backwards. My thoughts would be that a developer advocate has a full-time position, and I would even say that this is the person who has been on its maybe middle level as a developer or as a data scientist. So it's definitely not a junior. Why is that? Because as you correctly said in the very beginning of our episode today, it's kind of rooted to the fact that you need to have pretty strong skills as a developer or as a data scientist, as well as you need to be a little bit, I guess, in the business to understand how the industry is working and how is it better to reach out to different communities and etc. So that is why perhaps it is better to take this kind of position after you have been on the middle level as a senior developer, as a developer or as a data scientist. So, and definitely I would assume that this is the full-time position because right now you are, I would put it even, you are kind of standing as an product influencer of a company
Mm-hmm.
because you have to make all of those connections, you have to make all of those engagements. You also have to be very up to date. So it's not about talking and engaging, right? You also need to practice your technical skills so you would not lose the ability to uh, solve problems, for example. So in order to be a in this like wolf pack, why do you go and reach out to developers? So you are on the same kind of wave as they are. And I see actually a huge value for the company because just imagine that you do have a product. And for example, that you might overlook different details that this specific product will not be working under this specific conditions or with this specific versions of different systems. And that is why um, developers and communities of those developers are pretty handy for you. And you hire this intermediate, very important person who is going to create the whole life cycle and the whole circle of your product enhancement. Um, I would put it that first, your product is getting broader into the market. So the more communities you manage to catch, the better it is for your product, the better it is for your marketing position as well. And also, I guess the second part, having on your side different developer communities is also very beneficial for you as a company to stand out as a very mature, technologically wise company on the market as well. And also about the feedback loop. I know that we have mentioned this a couple of times today already, but the
Mm-hmm.
feedback from developers is pretty important for the company in order to make new releases. Because pretty much we know that a new release of a software, it's going to be based on the previous bugs that were not fixed or were overlooked in the previous versions, right? So I guess it's pretty,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's pretty handy. Do you have anything to add to this?
I think the only thing to add for me would be it really also depends on your organization's maturity. So I believe that if you're like a really small startup, like with 10 to 20 people,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of already like, for startups, not too bad. But
Already is.
usually you maybe are not able to afford a full-time developer advocate position. So maybe that is something then that people actually do on top of the job, just
Mm-hmm.
because the organization is not yet strong enough to support this full time. And maybe
Totally.
even for big organizations, this is how you get started, right? So if I'm a data scientist or a software developer, and I would like to move into that position, what I would do is actually I would start on my own, as
Mm-hmm.
a added responsibility in that sense, to start also, be more vocal on LinkedIn, like on other any other communities, about
Mm-hmm.
the product, about, like, sharpening my public speaking skills. And obviously you should then also talk about this with your manager to also get the approval to do so. Depends on your
Mm-hmm.
organization, but you can somewhat move into the role, and then once you've also been more visible in your organization, the jump into like a full-time developer advocate position, it's going to be way easier. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's how I would start. So maybe, in my opinion, it fully should be a full-time responsibility, because, as you said, I think otherwise it's really like it's a lot of added responsibility. It's a lot of added
For sure.
workload. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's not how many of these colleagues have started, and
Mm-hmm.
being in that role. And you said the word influencer, and I think that's very, very fitting, because
Mm-hmm.
that's actually how I got also aware about this role with like this more tech influencers. And I
Yeah.
think, usually you also start small as influencer, and then you grow
Yeah.
into that
Grow.
role and you see, okay, this could also take up like a full-time responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think it's
So.
also it's not just beneficial for the company, right? I think it's also an interesting and attractive career
Mm-hmm.
development for you as the expert, because I mean, you really, really are also working on your own personal brand. So you're definitely increasing your
Mm-hmm.
your like, your person's market value, if
And
you want to call it
positioning.
like that. But I think, as you said, you really need to strike that balance between still being part of the technical community, still working also
Yes.
technically to some extent, but then also
Mm-hmm.
being able to engage with the community.
Yeah. So, guys, for you, if you're listening and if we do have developers in our community, that I guess this is a pretty nice chance for you. If you're working in a small company or in the middle company that does not have that positions, but you definitely see yourself fitting in this one, Yasmin just told you a pretty cool advice how you can get started with this one. And the first one will be just for your LinkedIn account. Yeah. And maybe
Exactly.
right now.
And now you may wonder, right? Am I in the right company to do that? Or what kind of
Mhm.
companies are offering these kind of positions? We've already mentioned a little bit, right? That you definitely would
Technical.
need to be in a company which is somewhat selling to the outside world, and you're not like
Hmm.
an internal data scientist or internal consultant, or not
Yes.
having any outside contact. Um,
Hmm.
so definitely, like, the big technology companies are offering that for sure, Amazon, Google, and the likes. Um, but as mentioned, also like already startups which are, in the more 50 to maybe 200
Hmm.
company employee size range, which definitely see also the value of that roles being added. I
Hmm.
must say, I definitely feel a stronger focus on the US market, or like, on the maybe
Yeah.
Canada, North America market.
Hmm.
I haven't seen as many positions here in Germany and Europe. I don't know. Kate, can you give
Hmm.
us a different picture on this?
Yeah, definitely. So, what I did a little bit of the research, I can say that unfortunately for Germany specifically, I found only one company that is hiring a senior developer advocate, and it's called Here Technologies, and it is located in Berlin. So, should
And
we
with the open
actually,
positions. So I
with
think
the
there are
open
more
position,
companies,
yeah,
but like with open positions, yes.
yeah, definitely. So, we cannot know other positions if they're not open. So that is we're talking about the only open ones. And for example, if we will take the European Union, that I found just three positions listed in there. The first one is in Ireland, and this is the GitLab company. I guess it is. We all aware of that company as a GitHub slash GitLab. And the second part is in Austria. They're actually hiring two senior developer advocates for platform enablement. By the way, fun fact. So developer advocates, sometimes called avocados, as we have seen recently. And the last part, this is something that you were talking about the United States, maybe Canada, this north part. Um, they have definitely a better market for this for
Mhm.
these positions. And if you will just scroll down to the first page of LinkedIn, you can find immediately on the first page 9 different positions that are hiring developer advocates.
Technical.
And right now, perhaps
Yeah.
to talk a little bit about the salaries as well. Unfortunately, in Germany and in Europe, we don't have that possibility to see
The
the salary
transparency.
range. Yeah, to
Mm.
have this transparency. But what I can definitely say that, for example, in the United States, the range is between 98,000 to 287,000 per year. And for Germany, specifically, we have found different sources from 2023 and 2024 years that stated that the ranks are between 45,000 to like approximately 97-98,000 per year for this kind of positions.
And I think this is also not. I mean, it's a huge span, right?
Yeah,
For
it is.
both, like the Germany numbers, but also the US
Mhm,
numbers. And I think in the end, it really depends on your already reached seniority level as a software developer, as a data scientist.
mhm.
Usually, you don't want to also uh, worsen your life standards. So usually you're looking also to increase your salary. So that also depends a little bit of what stage you're already at your career. But just from logically, right? As mentioned, so this is a role where you do need core technical skills. So why should it,
Mhm.
why should they be valued less than like working with the same similar skills in a software developer role? And I
Definitely.
think, like as a tendency, or what I would feel makes a lot of sense, is that it's even added a little bit higher than comparable software's roles, because
Mhm.
you are representing the company to an outside world. So I think you do have a lot of added responsibility and visibility, but at the same time, also you could potentially, if done wrong, you could damage the image of the company. So, and with that, with this higher stakes, I think comes high responsibility. And usually I would also appreciate that higher responsibility with some financial dimension as well. So I think
Mhm.
it's definitely attractive. And
Mhm.
what I could also see is that we're seeing more of these roles opening up. I think,
Mhm.
swapping over from private life, the roles and the jobs of influencers, it has been around for like a decade, I think, by now,
Yeah.
roughly. And people are starting to accept it as a proper job, because it actually takes a lot of time. It's
Mhm.
also, it's not low effort, I would say. And I think this is swapping over into the tech sector. And while this role has been around also for decades, I think with the new social media being around, this is taken more seriously, and there are more opportunities coming. So I do see that more opportunities in the developer advocate roles are opening up in the future.
Mhm. Yep. If you can't foresee yourself in that kind of position, that on LinkedIn we have two nice influencers. The first one is Megan Leo, and the second person is Tiffany Jensen. So please feel free to follow them, and we will definitely put it into the show notes.
Check them out. I think there are great real life examples of developer advocates being in developer relations. And get inspired of what they are doing, and if this could be a possible role for you as well. And if you like this kind of episode, us introducing you to, like more niche roles in
Yeah.
the software and data science world, let us know, and then we'll look up other roles for you as well.
Yeah. Perfect. Then see you
Have a
later.
good
Bye bye.
day. Bye bye.
This was Diaries of a Data Scientist by Yasmin and Kate. And if you enjoyed the episode, remember to check out our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn pages for more engaging content from the data science world. Thank you for today, and seeing you in the comments.